This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Easthampton City Council Property Committee meeting. It's December 10th, 6:30 p.m. In terms of approval of minutes, it has been so long that I don't know if we have minutes to approve. So, I mean,
I didn't see any.
okay, so let's not worry about that for now. If I need to go back and track down some minutes, I will. William, I see did you raise your hand? Is there something you need to say?
He's probably trying to figure it out.
Okay.
He's alone right now at home, trying to figure it out.
Okay. So let's just go ahead.
Unless he was trying to leave you down.
So there are two. Well, in any case, we'll have a chance for people to speak as the items come up. So there are two things on our agenda right now. We haven't met in some time, in part because there hasn't really been a pressing need to address either of them, but I'd sort of like to just start moving in the direction of getting things cleared off our plate so that when things do come up, it's not a big deal. So the two items are the town lodging house referral for disposition and an ordinance request regarding flags on public property, including over ponds. When I initially called this meeting, I sort of had been under the assumption that we were going to probably focus on the second item more, because my understanding was that the other item, the town lodging house item, was sort of the city wasn't prepared to talk about it, but Michael informed me that we were ready to get an update. So I think my idea is that we talk about this for a minute or for as long as we need to, but we might not be in a position to take a vote on anything in particular tonight, but at least we can get sort of an update about what the landscape is and where the various parties stand. And so we at least have something to think about, going forward.
Okay.
So, Mayor?
How's it going?
Good. Michael, it sounded like you had some stuff you
Can I
wanted.
join you?
Yeah, by all means, come on.
So I'm here to talk to you this evening because any disposition of city land is subject to Chapter 30B, which is the state's procurement law, and I'm the city's procurement officer. So I wanted to give you a quick thumbnail sketch, especially for the benefit of Councilor Schmidt. Do you know anything on the background of this project, Councilor?
I'm vaguely familiar with the property, and I have some ideas as to probably what we're going to be talking about, but not really.
The former mayor had a policy for expanding affordable housing. The city worked with the Valley CDC probably over 2 years to look at the feasibility of an affordable housing project at that location. And we're talking about just the 1 acre where the current structure sits. They worked on that for quite some time. They engaged an architect, an engineer, cost estimators, and they came to the conclusion that it was not feasible. It wasn't going to meet the threshold for unit cost for your traditional affordable housing financers, like low-income tax credits. So after almost a 2.5-year effort to put together a project at that site, we came to the conclusion that that wasn't going to happen with the Valley CDC, or probably with any other traditional affordable housing developer nonprofit like Valley CDC.
I can jump in just really quick.
Please,
and
please
just
do.
one of the reasons why it wasn't viable is just because the property has restrictions on it that are permanent deed restrictions. So there's an agricultural deed restriction. There's the affordable, I believe, is affordable.
Well, there are 2 parcels out there right now. There's about a 1 acre parcel that holds the current structure that has an affordable housing restriction that expires in 2030, and it has a historic preservation restriction that is in perpetuity. The other 54 acres of land have a agricultural preservation restriction also in perpetuity. Those will never go away. They are attached to the deed and they stay there permanently.
So that's those reasons are why it made it so difficult to.
Yeah, those reasons, the cost of construction in the current climate we're in, and what the Valley CDC had for plans for that building in terms of enhanced SRO units and some additional rental units at the rear of the property where the current garage is. All right, but again, that project just, they looked at it for a long time, and they could not get it to work. And again, I don't think any traditional affordable housing developer is going to be able to achieve a project that works down there financially. So subsequent to that, and I think this was probably 6 months ago, 8 months ago, we were approached by a social service agency in the eastern part of the state that works with veterans. And they have approached the city to propose purchase of the property and rehabbing the existing building or buildings to serve as veteran housing and as part of a program for what is called regenerative agriculture, training for regenerative agriculture, training for what do they call it? They call it pardon me.
Well, Michael's looking for that. I would just say that this company they did their first project out in Montana, where it was really successful, and they ended up getting like national attention based on the ability to bring in vulnerable veterans to be able to pair them with meaningful like work experience and jobs where they were doing hands-on things, raising sheep and farming the land, giving them tangible skills and even running little micro businesses around, selling this stuff as well. So
can I just pause this for
sure,
1 second for a procedural thing? Councilor Krasinski, I see that you're taking notes. I realize that we never have elected someone to be the clerk of this committee since its brief reorganization. Since we're reorganizing in a month anyway, do you mind just using those as minutes for this meeting? Since you're doing it?
Sounds good. Since I'm doing
Thank you. Okay.
and also, since it's recorded, you'll get a transcript of all the. You should get a transcript of everybody's.
They're available.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay.
Do we know if the lot that the town lodging house is on, it is, you said it's separate 1 acre lot, which I'm confused about that. Is the APR covered the house as well?
No,
It does not.
it does not. I've looked at the APR map online and it doesn't cover the parcel that the house is on, or that 1 acre piece that the house is on.
So is that zone like R35?
I don't know what it's zoned.
I think it would be R35.
Yeah,
I believe.
probably.
Call up the zoning map.
And the, so,
Well, I still want to finish our
Yeah,
presentation here.
Yeah, why don't let them do their thing and then we'll have a time for questions.
So we've been approached by the social service agency, and they've been successful in these models and in terms of regenerative farming, teaching farming business to veterans and other trade skills. And this is what they're proposing to do with this property. If the city wants to declare it surplus and available for disposition, and the city would do that through its property committee. And then you'd get my assistance, the assistance of the planning director and mayor to develop an RFP. The RFP would be put out on the street, and we would look for a proposal from this group that has approached us. This is I've just given you, I'm going to give you the written summary of what they've provided to the city most recently. And I sent to the counselors, I think Councilor Schmidt, did you receive the excerpts from Chapter 30B guidance? I just wanted to point out, the first thing you have to do is to declare a property available for disposition and identify reuse restrictions as determine its value. So we've taken 2 steps since our initial conversations with Heather Tackle and her group. We have completed an environmental sampling at the farmhouse for asbestos and lead paint, and that has been completed and provided to them. They have completed an appraisal for the property, the entire property, both the house and the farmland, and they have provided that to the city. That appraisal is a draft at this point in time. I still have a couple of questions about their rationale of how they came to their conclusion. It's important to know that there are no comparables for this property. These properties do not sell. It's a unique property. It has these deed restrictions on it that are really severe encumbrances to doing anything with the property other than what those deed restrictions dictate. They have come up with a value of, and this is still a draft, of the entire parcel, house and farmland, $47,444. State law dictates that anything over $35,000 in value has to go to an RFP. So that would be a request for proposals with specific guidelines that the city wants that proposer to meet. Certainly those guidelines would include the 3 restrictions that are currently on the property: affordable housing restriction on the structure, historic preservation restriction on the structure, and the agricultural preservation restriction on the farmland. We would also look for a pro forma from this group showing us that they have the financial and technical expertise to undertake this project, how they see their finances working out into the future, probably at least 15 or 20 years. And we want to see some sort of statement for public benefit. And those are the scoring mechanisms that the city has preliminary identified that we use in that RFP. That's come about as discussions with the mayor and discussions with Allison Manuel, the planning director. So again, tonight, the only purpose was to come by, give you a thumbnail sketch of where we're at at this time. It is the property committee's purview to declare this property surplus, available for disposition, and direct the mayor or the city staff to prepare the RFP for your ultimate approval, and then go to the city council for a full vote.
And I think it's also worth noting that Councilor Kwasinski's been at the table for a lot of these discussions, so he has some knowledge and some deep institutional knowledge about releasing city properties, because we've done it in the past multiple times. So I think that that's good that Councilor Kwasinski is here. And I think that this is a good opportunity, just as an introduction, for you to start mulling this now, and ask any questions that you would have. The process does take, there are multiple steps. So, but I think from the city's perspective, from the executive side, that, we would love to see this happen, sooner rather than later, just so we can, if this could be potentially viable, that there's a possibility to, start the wheels moving.
I think the bottom line is the city owns the property. The city doesn't make a good landlord.
Yeah.
We don't have the expertise. First off, to rehab the building is millions and millions of dollars. It's not something the city would ever undertake.
Well, and it has affordable restrictions. So it's not like you could recoup that in any short period of time.
Now, the property does have significant cultural value to the city. And Heather Tackle and her group would like to, in speaking with her over the last, I spoke with her this morning, actually. You know, they would like to, their model is to bring this farmhouse and farmland somewhat back to its original model as helping those in need learn how to farm, have a decent roof over their head while they're learning how to do this regenerative farming and learning business techniques surrounding successful agriculture operations and other technical skills, trade skills that are used around the farming industry. Heather Tackle would be more than happy to come and talk to you about this. I think she is online now as a guest here or as a member of the public here at your committee meeting this evening.
Heather.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for allowing me to sit in, and Michael.
Quickly, before you say anything, I just wanted to see if the councilors have any questions.
Yeah, do you have any questions for me?
I do have a couple of questions. Yeah. So it sounds like this company, in what they are proposing at this point, would be able to honor that agricultural restriction and make use of that farmland.
They're going
in
to
conjunction with
any agency or any group that purchases this property from the city, if it's declared surplus and available for disposition, is going to have to comply with those deed restrictions. And that's for agricultural use of the farmland and the historic preservation restriction that goes along with the original lodging house.
Yeah.
And all buildings on site. Quite frankly, it includes the garage building at the back of the property as well.
Okay.
Built by the Civilian Conservation Corps back in the 30s or something, if I remember the historic sheets correctly.
Yeah, I guess I just want to make sure that because we're talking about a couple different properties, it sounded like divisions of property anyway. I just wasn't sure if we were talking just the 1 acre that they were interested in, or if they were actually.
They and I asked that question as well, and I will let Heather answer that question.
Yeah.
Because you'd be hearing it secondhand.
The house is just on 1 acre, though. I think it's 3.5 acres.
It could be. I don't have a surveyed plan.
Yeah.
I
have one.
Planning department has a surveyed plan. I do not. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
I'm just curious if you have any idea of how this company may have heard about this property to reach out to us in the first place. If you have any.
I don't.
I believe it was a woman on Caroline Circle when this was like all happening with the low income deal and all that. I believe she reached out to this Veterans Association as an alternative to what was kind of trying to happen there. And it seemed like everyone in that area was kind of opposed to, that the low
They did
income.
not want to see additional units at the site, for sure.
Yeah. Another
But I
question.
think that's accurate.
Another question, just throwing this out there. You said there was a $35,000 limit before it goes into.
Well, if a city property is worth less than $35,000, the city doesn't have to go to an RFP.
Okay.
We can simply negotiate with the whoever wants to purchase the property and sell it to them.
All right. So if it would make things easier and it would, simplify things, Chickwin Family Farm would be interested in purchasing the land that we've been, leasing since I think 1980 or 82, and my grandfather since 1933.
Sure.
And then work with the Veterans Association if they wanted to do like a long-term lease with us to implement what they want to do,
Mhm.
just so we can kind of keep a little more control of the farmland.
Sure.
Just a thought, that's all.
That's what the council is to consider.
And I don't know if it's deeded, if the property is deeded to the inhabitants of Easthampton. I know that was kind of thrown around as well on the deed restrictions.
I'm not a lawyer, so I just know that the city owns the
Do you know
property.
anything about that?
No.
Typically, the language in a deed that says the inhabitants of a city or town refer to the group of people who are there, and that usually means the governmental unit.
Yeah.
The government, all the people, not just any landlords, not just any landowners, but to all the people. And typically that means, that language, I believe, is used to transfer.
Well, that's something we can look
titles,
into.
but that becomes a legal thing, and we can.
That would be part of the process as we move forward to make sure that the deeds are clean and what exactly is in there as well.
Okay. Heather, I'm sorry for cutting you off earlier. I just wanted to make sure that the counselors had a chance to ask questions. Do you want to speak?
Of course, and sorry for not being there in person, and appreciate being able to be part of the conversation. So I'm Heather Tackle from Nonprofit Renewal Initiatives, nonprofit developer working together with Farmer Veteran Coalition is the Veterans Association name that has been thrown about. And I'm sorry, I can't see all the way on the screen, but someone from the Chickwin family did describe it correctly, that a woman named Emmy McCalla from the neighborhood had called Farmer Veteran Coalition looking for some other solution that really helped preserve the historic use and purpose of the property. So that's how we came to be, as well as through another organization, Advocates for Human Potential, who's kind of a fiscal sponsor and allowing us to be able to make financial sense of the property and make it work. So I think I addressed everything that I heard, except for just to comment on the Chickwin family farms. Definitely would be happy to sit down and talk about some other arrangement. That what we have envisioned was working with the Chickwin family, and we think it really is not only the best historic property use for the property, but also for the Chickwins, who have been farming it for so many generations and really part of their property, rather than the agricultural land going to a farmer who would want to be using that farm and likely supplant what the Chickwins have been doing there. But this vision that we have for the property would be minimal agricultural takeover of the land. It really would be, the plan would be to work with the Chickwins to integrate their farming operations into the training operations of the Veterans Training Center in the regenerative agriculture approach, which the family is already practicing some of those practices today with the grass-fed approach that they take to farming their cattle. So it's something to consider, but to speak to the question about breaking the two apart and long-term lease, really, we see it as critical to be able to have both the housing and the land together and integrated, and necessary component of the vision that we have for the property in this training center. So those two things obviously go hand in hand, because it's a farming school, a school for farming, that it wouldn't work with just one piece, the housing component, which I do think it is all one property parcel, by the way. There would have to be something that happens to split it apart, to think about it different. And if you split it, if you didn't split it apart, whoever does get the whole parcel would have to comply with those affordable housing and get that property back up into compliance, which is, as others have mentioned, is millions of dollars to be able to do. And that's what we're planning on doing. Any questions that I could answer for the group?
Counselors?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, this sounds like a really interesting thing. It sounds like there's some conversations to be had with your family and this organization and the city about exactly what the arrangement would look like. But I think that it's certainly something that I'd be interested in hearing more about and learning about. And if we can come to a situation that everyone feels is a good arrangement, then I don't see why it would be difficult to sort of work ahead with that. So I think there's a couple outstanding questions. Just before we get anything else, is there anything you guys would like to say? Anything else you'd like to say, or any other questions you'd like us to look into?
I guess not at this point particularly, but
I guess it'd be a backup if or whatever. I like their plan is really, it's pretty much the only thing that can happen with that other than farming, because of the APR on the land, but if for some reason that doesn't go forward and you're still looking to get rid of the land and you'd like to put it to keep it farming, we'd be interested in it. Like I said, I don't necessarily know, like the historical preservation on the house and how I might have to, obviously we'd have to look, like we're not lawyers, but we'd have to look into the wording of that,
I believe that the house itself could be used for farm hands, like people working in the farm community. I don't know if it would be specific just to Chickland Family Farm, or if it could be lent out to, but that has nothing to do with the Veterans Association.
Yeah, we just wanted to say if for some reason that didn't go forward, that we were still interested in that. And I did listen to we did listen to their template or whatever of what they want to do, and it's pretty impressive, and it's like you said, there's so many restrictions on that town farm, and like my dad was saying that was the town actually gave the building rights to that land to the state, so that if anybody else does APR on their farmland, the town doesn't have to come up. There's another thing. The town doesn't have to come up with their 15% or whatever. So the town forever never has to come up with 15% if somebody else wants to sell off the building rights. So to the state. So that's another thing. That's another, restriction on that.
So if the committee, if you guys have any other questions for me, I have to run.
Okay.
But I would say step one, before we get into the weeds of what is exactly going to happen there, how does this whole project come together, how do all the pieces fit together? Step one is you all determining whether we declare this surplus. That's step number one. And so once that happens, that kind of is going to trigger the next kind of cascading level of events. So once we declare it surplus, then we start moving forward to say, okay, now here are the pieces. We want to make sure that these 4 restrictions, are included in any sort of disposition. So any RFP, we want to make sure. So we're going to have to, at that point, we'll be looking at the deeds, seeing what's within the deeds, and making sure that, we have a clear understanding of site survey, how much property is on each parcel, because right now we're talking about 2 parcels.
Right.
And just having a clear picture of that. But in order for that to happen, the first step needs to happen, which is to declare it surplus.
Okay.
So with that, if you have any other questions, I'm gonna.
Did you have a time frame for the whole vision?
I think that if we can move in a way that we all that you all feel comfortable getting your questions answered, being able to say we're not feeling rushed, we're feeling like we're able to weigh all of these things and once we declare it surplus, that's when we get to the next piece of doing the RFP. So I would say declaring it surplus could happen sooner rather than later.
Right.
And then this next piece is we can start working with all of the parties involved to make sure that we're putting together something that really fits the site, that is hopefully doable, and that can, take this historic piece of property and use it to its best highest use.
Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like there's anyone here advocating for it to not be declared surplus.
Okay, that's good.
And you'd outline the restrictions for the use of the property at the same time.
Yeah.
At the same time. So then that's, I guess, the thing is I think we should probably start that conversation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Matt.
But I think, and I think there's a couple legal things that about exactly, is this 1 parcel or 2, or how exactly does this look? That's going to have to probably come up for us to have the language to do a motion to declare surplus.
Yeah.
So
There's a fair amount of moving parts here.
Mhm.
It can't happen overnight, but we can start thinking about it certainly and start formulating in our mind what type of goals does the city want for whoever is going to propose to reuse this property.
okay.
And in terms of rehabbing the historic building and then agricultural use on the adjoining farmland, hopefully a collaboration with neighboring farmers could be a real home run. There'll also have to be protections for the city. We will want a right of first refusal if the folks that buy this property ever go to sell it. These kind of things need to be thought about, and staff will be thinking about a lot of these issues over the next weeks.
Okay.
I wanted to come here because I know guys hadn't met till June. I just thought I owed you a little quick thumbnail sketch of what's
Thank you
going
for
on,
that.
as well as the public.
If there's any further information you'd like of the history of the project or of the efforts to develop the site, I'm sure the city would make any documentations available to Jonathan to help you, should you have questions about that. I know you're a researcher kind of guy.
Yeah, I
so-
appreciate that. I didn't immediately see an email about what you had mentioned.
I may have sent it to Peg.
Understandable.
So I'm gonna send that to you
I
tomorrow.
appreciate that. And I wonder too, do you have any sort of documentation of kind of the previous analysis that the city had done?
The CDC had done?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd be curious.
I can put you in contact with a staff person
on
at
their end.
CDC for a
Okay,
conversation. You know.
Okay.
That would probably be most beneficial to you.
Gotcha. Thank you. Your name again one more time?
I'm Michael Owens. I'm the city's procurement officer. Good to meet you too. Welcome.
Thanks.
City Councilor. Yeah.
Did you drop your formal role as taking over the treasury?
Oh, no, we have a treasurer now.
I know we have a treasurer, but did you drop your role as the advising and helping?
Oh, I provide support
All sorts
to
of
the treasurer.
technical support.
I
Bringing your
support them.
vast knowledge of expertise. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm part of the city's finance team. I work with the treasurer. I go to the department head meetings because I'm kind of a half-ass department head, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Good.
all right, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate
Super.
it. Good
Okay.
to see you folks.
Yeah. Please just shoot us an email when you feel you're looking to move forward with this, with the language and
I would ask if you're going to get the draft appraisal tomorrow as well.
Okay.
If you folks want to look at that, I know
Sure.
it was sent out a couple weeks ago, but if you have any questions or concerns, I just asked for a little bit more clarification on the rationale for some of the price per acre that's part of the appraisal. It's drafted. It's marked draft. In the next. Right after the first of the year, we'd like to accept this and make it final.
Okay.
So
That's helpful.
you'll get that appraisal tomorrow as well as the excerpt from chapter 30B. And I will reach out to the Valley CDC and get you connected with that staff person who can spend a few minutes on the phone with you to give you that perspective from their point of view.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so thanks everyone. I'm really excited to keep having this conversation. Sounds interesting. Do you want to touch on the other item real quick before we adjourn? Sure. Okay.
Get me up to speed, I guess.
Yeah. So the other item on our agenda. Yeah. The other item on our agenda is about, there was a request from the previous mayor. You guys are welcome to stay. Is there anything else you want to say before?
Still online?
Yeah, we're still online.
Not necessarily, no, at this point. I mean, just kind of play it by ear and see how it goes,
Okay, great. Well, I'm definitely interested to see how this goes. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to switch to the next item. So no need to
That
stick
might
around.
be interesting.
If you want to stick around, you're more than
I might
welcome.
be interested in that. Who knows?
Committed now.
Okay, great. So
Flying flags.
yeah, that's about flying. So basically, this is my general understanding. There was a larger there was hello, Lawrence.
Hi. Lawrence is the expert on regenerative farming.
Oh, Lawrence, you showed up just a minute too late. We just wrapped up that topic. There was no decision made tonight. I think we're going to meet again sometime in early January to keep talking about, declaring the property surplus and
Okay.
exactly what that looks like.
If Lawrence wants to take a minute to just share the share the vision of regenerative farming, I'd be happy to hear that.
Sure. If you'd like to say something.
Essentially, what we heard was a general, very brief outline of what has transpired to date, very brief, and very little detail on regenerative farming or on your expertise for this project. Lawrence was the person that was contacted by the resident in the area. And he kindly took the call.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I apologize for my late entry. The goal and the vision of regenerative farming is just that, is being good stewards of the location, and not to assert that anyone else isn't, but just taking on the principles of regenerative farming to nurture the entire ecosystem, and to support and focusing on establishing and enhancing and supporting the current natural species, plants in that setting, and creating or supporting the ecosystem and the regeneration of any species that had not been focused on in the past. There are a lot of different approaches to doing it. Our focus would be heavily on, or depend heavily upon, the experts in that region. Speaking of the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, the USDA's Natural Resource and Conservation folks, and then the other subject matter experts that provide us input, and we're good at following the recipe of tailoring our plan towards what is needed in the Easthampton setting. I don't know that had been the focus before, but either way, our focus is to help those in the setting already. There's a gentleman that is currently, and there's a historic presence there of working the land, and we want to help support the continued efforts of that, but enhancing his ability to increase the yield of natural grasses that he's harvesting there, to offer his, or afford his animals a better or a more nutritious product coming off of those fields. It doesn't happen overnight, but in the distant future, the goal is to have enhanced that setting so that it's sustainable, and that we all gain value from that regenerative process.
And I don't know if were you all asking also about the veterans training model too. The Montana farm that Mayor Derby was referencing was Lawrence's, has been built together with Farmer Veteran Coalition, and the whole holistic model that Farmer Veteran Coalition calls Hive. So I didn't know if you were asking for Lawrence to also explain the entire training model, not just regenerative agriculture, but.
I think we're going to get a lot of opportunity to talk about this in the coming.
What I would recommend is that we have a full presentation. And I think you would have the ability to bring us in on the 55,000 member organization of the council, and your work with the Department of Agriculture in Washington, and your work with the government officials in Montana, Senate officials in the country and across the country, and also bring in an explanation of the folks out in Sudbury area and their resources. And it's a multi-pronged approach that I think you're well equipped to handle, given the intricacies of the historic preservation restrictions, the agricultural restrictions, and the historic and the affordable housing restrictions, and amalgamating all three into one for the benefit of all citizens in Easthampton, and hopefully the benefit of all farms in Easthampton and farmers in the valley. So don't mean to, but so I look forward to that presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
it's going to be really interesting.
Okay, yes, thank you for the opportunity. We look forward. Just let us know, and we'll be present for that opportunity.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we jump back to the other topic?
Jump back to the other topic.
Okay. So, yeah, in short, there was a request for, so part of this stemmed from the whole situation about the flag over the pond last year, but it kind of goes a little bit back beyond that. Because I think that a lot of the actual issues around the flag over the pond have largely been resolved. Insofar as like there was a question because part of it was on private land, and it turns out we just needed to have the wire go to a different tree, and now that has largely been. Now there's questions because like not every person from various. There's some people I know that have had some concerns because it's not completely within keeping with U.S. flag code, but U.S. flag code is not the law. So it's like there's no actual immediate issue other than just what best practices we want to care about there. There is a sort of a broader conversation that is a little bit more abstract and not really pond specific that I think we need to have, which is that there isn't right now any sort of guidance about who can put up flags on public land, what flags, how and when and where. And so it largely right now is simply an executive order that the previous mayor did saying that the flags that can fly are basically the U.S. flag, the Massachusetts flag, and the POW flag, and that anything else could be approved by the mayor, but the executive order then goes to say the city council should really have an ordinance about this, like because the question is like it's not uncommon for various groups. There's a pretty large Tibetan refugee population in the area, and they have in the past asked us to fly the Tibetan flag at City Hall, which I think many of us are supportive of, what the Tibetan people have been through. But if you're a representative of, say, the Chinese government, you might see it a little bit differently. And so the point is that there's like, this is all kind of just being done on an ad hoc basis, and there's not really any guidelines to follow other than just like ask the mayor and see what they think. And
Sorry to interrupt. Was there an issue with the flag being flown over the pond? Were people taking offense to it?
well, there was a couple of issues with it, but it's sort of like those issues have largely been resolved.
Right.
One of them was that part of the rope that connected it across was reaching onto private land.
Okay.
And so there was an insurance challenge that came with that, where say that rope snapped and it hit a boater or something.
Okay.
Well, because it's not a rope, it's like a big metal cable. Like, how does that work out? And so usually when people are doing a project, right now, the way that we basically reworked it last year is that is now a project for the Nashwauk Pond Committee, and they're responsible for putting it up and taking it down. It was previously just an unaffiliated group of private citizens. And so it was like, okay, so there's these private citizens, some of whom used to be in government, but at this point it's just like a group of private citizens who are doing this. And so there was some liability concerns and just insurance and stuff like that that are not things that the public are broadly particularly interested in, but that cities do have to stress out about. So we basically solved all of those issues for the time being. There is some people who brought up that like there is like a US flag code about how flags should be properly displayed, and flying them over a pond unilluminated on a cable is definitely not in keeping with US flag code. No, US flag code is guidance, it's not the law. So there's like, we're not going to get in trouble for doing it, but like technically the guidance about how we are supposed to do this, that is not in keeping. And so there have been people, I think from like, I'm not sure exactly which groups, VFW or the Legion, or now those groups are not unanimous in feeling one way or another about it, but there have been individuals who have been like, that's not how you're supposed to display the flag. And actually bringing it into any sort of meaningful compliance would be probably a kind of expensive procedure. But that,
there is a Nashwanik Pond Committee. And
there is a Nashwanik Pond
responsible
yes.
for the display of it.
They're now responsible for putting that up. Yeah. That is their thing, and I'm not ultimately like, if I know that there's some people who are thinking, because the flag initially went up as part of a sort of, as right after 9/11, and there's a thought of doing a more permanent and a more like explicit 9/11 memorial, that there's like a group going on that. So that may or may not happen, and it may or may not be, that could be in addition to or in lieu of the flag. But that, in my opinion, is not really what the issue is right here. That is something that there are people working on, and I trust them to find a satisfactory, to get the public input and to find a satisfactory conclusion to that. But the bigger thing that I think about is, what if somebody else wanted to put a flag up on this pole or up on that cable or in the park or over by and said, hey, could you fly this? Well, what is the actual, because this has happened in Boston, I think there was like, if I get this wrong in a way that is unfair, then I apologize in advance. But my understanding of the situation was that there was like a gay rights group who flew like a pride flag up there. And then there was like a neo-Nazi group who was like, well, you're flying their flag, so you need to fly our flag or else you're being unfair. And obviously Boston didn't want to fly like the neo-Nazi flag, but it became like this whole thing. And it led like the Mass Municipal Association, which is the like overarching sort of professional group for all the mayors and city councilors and whatnot in the state, to say, you guys really need to have like some clear guidance about who makes these decisions and what is acceptable and what's not, because while flying a flag on public land is not explicitly like a right, you don't have like a First Amendment right to fly a flag on a public pole necessarily, but if there's a feeling that it's not being done sort of in a kind of a fair way, that somebody could try and test the waters there and the city could end up in trouble.
So earlier, did you say there was 3 different flags that you guys have kind of said that should be flown?
I believe that's what's in the current executive order of the previous mayor, which stands until the city council comes up with their own guidance. I see.
Or the executive issues.
Or issues a new one. Yeah, absolutely.
I think you've done a good summary of all the issues. So I think you've covered the reasons and history pretty well about this, including that their flag, to my recollection, started around the time of 9/11 and continued on every year. We remember a flag being over the pond. The only flag that's flown over the pond has been the United States flag. There hasn't been a state flag, a city flag, or a POW flag. There's been no other flags. I think that may be a good thing, and that it doesn't test any waters. Nothing is being, no pun intended there, but that so we may consider an ordinance that says the flag over the pond is the United States flag, that any flag that anyone flies there, including the National Aquatic Pond Committee, be the United States. And that settles at least that aspect of what flags, and it is to be seen as a unifying force, not a divisive force. But before somebody else grabs the flag, I think we all ought to grab the flag, and that ought to be the flag that we fly over our pond half the year. The other half of the year, the flags come down. It's really Memorial Day through Veterans Day is the time that the flag is allowed to be over the pond. Now, the question is, that still leaves the question about flags over the rest of the city and what our city flag poles and the flag and the telephone poles that the flags we see up go on. So but I think we've resolved one of the major issues of concern. I would see less controversy flying a flag over City Hall for a day or two or a week or something.
Yeah.
But something that stays up over the pond for a week or two really is a much bigger issue, I think, than the flags that go up in municipal parks.
So I guess the real question that I have is just about, say that I am a person who that I either want a flag to be flown on a municipal property, or I don't like a flag that's being flown on a municipal, that I have some opinion about.
You have an opinion on this,
which is, just to be perfectly clear, very hypothetical, because I personally don't have a lot of strong feelings about it. Like, I'm much more, there's a lot of things in the city of Easthampton that are freaking me out a lot more than what flags are on what poles. But we're here, and we've been tasked with coming to a resolution with this. And so I guess the big question is, like, we could write a ordinance that just codifies the mayor's executive order and says it's up to the mayor and that's it. Unless we felt that was not actually the appropriate thing, and that, for instance, the city council deserves some check on that decision, in which case we could put that in. Or we could say it is the mayor's decision within these parameters. And I don't think we're probably going to come up with the answer to all this tonight, but I figured it was probably a good idea to at least reintroduce this conversation, because I would love to get, I don't know if any of us will be on this committee in 3 weeks, is the one, like, who knows how that all shakes out. But if, assuming, like, saying that we are, or whoever the next people are, I think it would be good to come to some resolution of just simply, what's the process here? Who's making these decisions? How are they making these decisions? In which parameters are they making these decisions? And then not worry so much about what, I'm not as worried about specifically, I personally agree that if you wanted to put a bunch of other flags on there, I personally probably wouldn't like that. But who's making that call, right? Are we saying it's the mayor? Well, what if the next mayor decides, because that sort of, we got into this situation largely because right now it is really the exclusive domain of the mayor to make those decisions, and the mayor at the time decided that she didn't want it there. And so that was that. And there was no, we had these big meetings, and there was a lot of people who were really upset about it. And ultimately, it got resolved not through any action of the city council, but just through us going to the mayor and being like, can we please, and the mayor be like, all right. And but there was no vote ever taken on our part about this matter, because we currently have no jurisdiction over it until we write an ordinance. And
I think you should make the 3-flag ordinance, review it with city council, and then just propose it to the mayor to see if he wants to hold that true, just to, keep it in line, unless he may want something totally different, you never know.
I have a question. Are there any other ordinances within other municipalities related to this that you've looked at, could look at?
It's probably worth taking another look, but definitely a lot of people do it in different ways. And I believe that the Mass Municipal Association had a little primer on this on their website, if I'm not
On flag ordinances.
specifically on flag ordinances. Because that's what they're kind of there for, is like when there's suddenly a thing and everyone's like, wait, what do we do? I never had thought about this until just now. They bring it up. So I think there is something from them. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I could find that theoretically like within their resources.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that something you'd like to take on?
I would certainly like to do a little bit of reading and see what other communities have done, so that can be brought to the next conversation that we have on this.
Okay. Yeah, well, let's do a little bit of research on it, and the holidays are coming up, so I figure whoever the successor body is to like whoever's on property next time will probably be picking this up, but I assume at least some of us will be, so we can take it from there.
Okay.
If you're not on property, then please forward along your research to whoever is. Cool. Anything else? All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We're adjourned, everybody. Thanks for your patience and your input. And we'll be meeting again soon.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.